I've probably said this before, and I'll no doubt say it again many times during the series, but you know when you get that game that you played a lot as a kid, and you remember it fondly, and you think, that was a really good game. And you think about all the time you spent whiling away, getting from level 1 to level 2, playing level 2 over and over and over and over again, getting to level 3 and not really getting much past level 3. But nevertheless, you remember this game fondly, and you especially remember getting the cheats for it in Commodore format at your grandma's house one day. Today we're going to be talking about such a game. Hi, I'm Ben, as you already know, and welcome back to another Retro Ramble. And I'm going to continue last week's theme with the whole future is a con malarkey by looking at the game from the film that started it all. When I say all, I mean last week's video. That's Back to the Future 2, as you've probably gathered from my groovy little desktop going on there. Oh, dearie me. I used to really like this game. I did. It was wonderful. And until yesterday, I hadn't played it in, oh crikey, 23 years? It's got to have been about at least 23 years. Anyway, let me tell you a bit about the game. It was developed by Imageworks and distributed in the UK by Mirrorsoft. I think it was Konami in America, but I could be wrong. Anyway, as you can tell, little to no research done. I'm just going by what I remember. From what I saw of the game and what I remember is the first level has you on a hoverboard, which looks something like this. Doesn't look very impressive, does it? It's because it's not. I remember this game being a lot of fun. In fact, I remember this game being a whole lot of fun. And I would spend hours playing this game. And as I said at the beginning, I wasn't very good at it. I would go from level 1, and I got stuck on level 2 for a long time. If I remember correctly, level 2, you are playing as Jennifer and you've got to escape from the McFly house. But I played Back to the Future 2 yesterday, as I said, for the first time in a long time, and I sucked at it. I don't think it was because it was particularly hard. I think it was because it was very difficult to play. And what I mean by difficult is the control is atrocious. And I do seem to remember struggling with the controls back then, but you didn't think about it then. You didn't think about the difficulty of the controller, how hard it was to control a game. You just put that down to the level of difficulty actually in the game. I'm sorry if I'm not making much sense. I'll try and sum it up. I think we took how hard it was to control a character in a game as granted. We put it down to part of the gameplay, not actually as part of the development. Because I think this is what Back to the Future 2 suffers from. It's very, very, very difficult to control. It's very clunky, very clumsy. I mean, you probably know I do a lot of my stuff on a Mac using emulation. At the moment, after Christmas, I'll be doing it on the actual dedicated machinery, but we'll talk about that in another video. But I've been using one of these, which is a replica Competition Pro joystick. It just sits on a USB. And it feels pretty much like the joysticks I had as a kid felt. But you do find you're slamming the stick to get it to move. Well, I certainly did yesterday. I was struggling a lot trying to control Marty, and that was probably visible in the gameplay. And it actually feels a little wrong, if I'm honest, to talk about this game in such a way. Because, as I've stated already, I love this game. Hell, I went through 2 copies. Really, I did. I ended up having bought for me. My mum bought me a second copy because my first one snapped. Because as you probably know, I know that people who know me already watch this. Hi, by the way. If you don't know, I went to boarding school for people with sight issues, and I would come in from school, and I'd start playing Back to the Future too. And yes, it was the game, but the other reason why I used to play it a lot, and this goes back to something I talked about in another video, is the music. Not in the game, because you might have noticed the music in the game wasn't particularly good. What I'm talking about is what the Commodore 64 was famous for. The loading music. Have a listen to this. So yeah, you hear it there. That is fantastic. It's a wonderful piece of music, and if you want to watch the full loader, it'll go up on my channel. Actually, it should already be there. The link to my channel is in the description below. Lots of other good videos there. Alright, at the moment there's not that many because I've been having other things on at the moment, but there will be more. I've got to continue my Frontier series. Anyway, getting off topic. I got Back to the Future 2 about a year after it was released, because it was released in 1989. I'm fairly sure it says on the credit screen it was 89. I got it in 1990. My fascination with Back to the Future 2 began in the summer of that year. Now, I'm a massive fan of time travel, as anyone who knows me knows. But Back to the Future, the original, it's a good film and I enjoy it, but it was never a film that held a special place in my heart. And then when you have that ending where the DeLorean lifts off and flies off, and it says to be continued, I was always waiting for a sequel. Now, I don't know if anybody knew, but there was never actually going to be a sequel to Back to the Future. It was a deliberate red herring cliffhanger. And when the film was released in the later part of 1989, it came as a complete shock to me. I can actually remember how I found out about it. It was a friend of mine at boarding school talking about it in the games room at supper time. For anyone who went to my school, I know a couple of people do, it was actually George Steinberg who'd been to see it. And I was gobsmacked that this film had been made, and he told me the whole story. And then said, oh, there's going to be a third one, because of course at the end of the second one you've got the trailer for the third one. And I was absolutely blown away. But it must have fallen by the wayside, because it wouldn't be until I went on holiday to the southwest in 1990 when my dad bought me the Making of Back to the Future book, because I was standing there in W.H. Smith's and it opened up, one of the big pictures in the middle was of the DeLorean flying on the Skyway with the big road sign that says Phoenix, Boston, London. And I was completely enamoured by it. And I remember it cost £5. And my dad bought it for me. And that was the beginning of it, because it wasn't just about time travel into the future. It was my other passion. It was an alternate timeline. The whole... What did they call it? Robert Zemeckis had a word for the Biff timeline. It's like Biff Horrific. I think it's something like the Biff Horrific 1985 is what they called it in the book. And that completely fascinated me. That this is... And that was it. And we came back off holiday, and Back to the Future 3 was just about to come out in the cinema. And I remember my parents rented Back to the Future 2 on video. And it was before I had my own video recorder, and I can remember just hogging the television this one evening. And I don't even think... I think it was an early week, because the film was out on the Friday. And I just remember my dad bringing his video home on like a Tuesday, or Monday or Tuesday. And I sat, and I think I watched it 2 or 3 times. Twice, certainly, that night. Because I watched it all the way through, and then I watched it again later that night with my dad. And then... again, the next day I watched it before we took it back to the video shop. I probably even went, I'll take it into town myself, because I just didn't want to let it out of my sight. And anyone who knows me again from school knew that I had my own copy when I came back in in the September. But and I went to see Back to the Future with my friend David, who I've talked about before, and I enjoyed it. But my love was always Back to the Future too. You had, for me, the perfect storm of time travel, the future, and an alternate timeline. And how they wove the whole 2 Martys and 2 Docs in 1955 together was just genius. And I remember actually having the game for Back to the Future 3. To be honest, I don't actually remember it being that good from what I read in Commodore format. Meh. So yeah, I got to the Back to the Future party very late. The Back to the Future 2 party quite late. For me now, that'd be unheard of, because, I mean, sure, if the internet, the World Wide Web existed in 1989, I'd have been reading about leaks and that as late as probably Christmas 1988, and I'm sure it was all over the BBSs and the news groups and whatever. The news groups, sorry, and all that. But no, it was a complete surprise when I found out about it on that November Sunday in 1989. It was quite the shock. But yeah, the game is a disappointment, which a lot of film licenses tended to be. And I know people who have worked on some film license games, and I feel a bit bad saying that, but some of them were absolutely appalling. I know I had the original Back to the Future game for the Commodore 64. I think that was Data East. Again, I could be wrong, but it was on a Data East compilation, which is what makes me think it could have been Data East. But that was terrible. I to this day have no frigging idea what you were supposed to do in that game. And I had a friend, again, going back to school, I had a friend at school, Wayne Armstrong, and he'd played it on the Commodore 64, and he warned me against ever buying it. And to be fair, I didn't buy it. I didn't buy it, you know, that compilation for that game. I bought the compilation for International Karate Plus, which RGP's very own James introduced me to when I was 12. About 12 or 13. But yeah, Back to the Future 2. I think it's quite sad that such a great film had such a disappointing game. I mean, there's probably people out there that like it, and that's great. As I've always said, it's what makes us a world. Everybody's different. But I don't like it anymore. I have a word for this thing. It's called Howard the Duck syndrome. And I shall explain that. Howard the Duck syndrome came from about 10 years ago when, excuse me, itchy nose, when myself and John, who you saw in last week's video, we watched Howard the Duck, and we both admitted we watched it. It was the first time we watched it since we were kids, and we both loved the film as children. So we watched it, and we saw it for the absolute train wreck that most adults saw it for 20 years previously. So yeah, Howard the Duck syndrome, and Back to the Future 2 very much suffers from good old old Howard the Duck syndrome, because it's such a disappointment. I might go back to it. I might have a look at other versions of it. I know there was an Amiga version because I remember playing it. But I remember being put off by the music, and that's a strange thing to be put off. Well, for me, it's not a strange thing, but most people might think, nah. But I went to the Amiga version at my friend Ash's house, and thinking, well, it's on a 16-bit machine. It's got the machine has superior graphics and superior sound, specifically sound, so the music is going to be much better. And it wasn't. I don't remember the intro to Back to the Future 2 on the Amiga being any good. In fact, here it is. You can judge for yourself. So yeah, it's all about personal preference. I prefer the 64 version, some people might prefer the Amiga version that you've just seen. Hey ho, and that's pretty much it. Short and sweet. I know I've gone off topic a couple of times, but I think I've stuck pretty much with it. It's very much been a rambly video, this one. Next week's is going to be a lot more fun. And then it'll be tricky, and then it'll be taxing, and then it'll probably be mayhem. There's your clue for what's coming next week. Well, I can give you another clue. When I start doing the video, I might just say, "Let's go," in quite a high-pitched voice. And if something goes wrong, I might go, "Oh no," in an equally high-pitched voice. You just have to wait and see. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Do go to my channel and check the full version of the C64 intro, and I might put the full Amiga version up as well if I'm feeling sadistic enough, and also the full gameplay video I recorded. It's not very interesting, but you're obviously welcome to go and have a look and go, "God, you're rubbish at this game," because I am. I never was any good. As I say, I hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll see you next week. Take care. Bye bye. And don't forget, if you haven't already, press the subscribe button so you can get notifications and whatnot about our latest videos. And if you've already done that, you're not off the hook. Down there, that thumbs up thing, give it a press, give us a thumbs up, you know you want to. And also, leave a comment, start a discussion, tell us what you think, tell us if we've got anything wrong. Because it's not us that's wrong, it'll be you that's wrong, but, it's a free country, you can say what you want. Bye.